Hi, it's Cindy Morris with the Peoria Public Schools Foundation, and we are excited to be back and happy to have everyone that's viewing and on live with us on our Buzz Chats. Very honored tonight to have a parent, and I call him a supersized volunteer in the community, Michael Murphy. So I'll tell you a little bit about the foundation quickly, and then we'll kind of just pop right into some questions. Do you like Michael or Mike?
I usually go by Mike, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah. So, but the Peoria Public School Foundation's been around for many, many years, actually since 1992. And we are an organization that was started to exclusively support Peoria Public Schools. So that's the students, the staff, the families. And we've done so for many years in traditional ways like classroom grants for teachers, which we're in that cycle right now where teachers and staff can apply for grants, scholarships for mostly seniors going on to college. And then we've really gotten over the last 10 years or so into some programming, overseeing the Adopt a School program, our Horizons, which is our career and college readiness program. And then a real strong emphasis in the last 5 years on basic need support. So that is food insecurity, like with our Little Free Pantries, our snack pack programming. We can provide any student in the school district uniforms and coats and shoes and underclothing, and then a lot of emergency support too. So that's just some of the things we do, but we're very proud to work in our school district and support our families and students. And I've been working in the school district since 2009, and myself and a lot of the staff at the Peoria Public Schools Foundation started off as, I would say, supersized parent volunteers. So a lot of our staff, we were in the schools volunteering and just working very hard and kind of fell in love with the school district and trying very hard to support our school district. And I would say Mike Murphy is in that same category where he is very, very active in his children's school. And I first remember seeing you, I first saw you, I think at the airport, because you worked with my son, Jordan, at Allegiant. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing you at the airport first that way, but then also seeing you it was a strategic planning meeting at the school district. And I always love when the school district does that, when they pull in parents and the stakeholders that to me are like most important, the parents of the students in the school district. So I remember seeing you there, and you seemed really hands-on and knew exactly what you needed to do and being there. So if we could start off maybe, and we have a little bit of an agenda, but give the viewers a little background on yourself, on where you're from and maybe your children and stuff like that. So
sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm originally from Pekin and moved to Peoria about 14 years ago. Wasn't a far move, but always worked in the corporate sector for many years. And then we decided to start a family. And we started off with fostering initially, and then adoption. And I now have 3 kids that I've adopted. I've got a 2nd grader. I've got two 6-year-olds who are in 1st grade. And I have a 16-month-old foster son too. And for a while, I kind of left the corporate scene to get more involved with our kids and programs that dealt with our kids. And I did take a part-time job at the airport and worked at Allegiant with Cindy's son. And then we got a call for our 4th foster son. And so that's whenever I decided maybe staying at home and then taking care of them, and then maybe getting some volunteering in also would be the best direction for that. So that's kind of where I started heavily volunteering, was probably about 3-4 years ago.
And did you start, was it basically the Keller PTO? Is that where you started your volunteer?
Well, I started volunteering with Big Brother and Big Sister of Central Illinois.
Okay.
So I had what they call a little, and I had him for about a year. And then I also volunteered at Paws. So I would go a couple times a week and I would walk dogs. But as the kids started getting into school age, I was able to maybe donate financially to Paws and to Big Brothers rather than donating my time, just because, when you're starting off as a first-time kindergarten parent, you don't really know what all you may need and when you're going to get that phone call to go to the school. And so the school kind of became my main focus at that point. And that's whenever I started in pretty much day one, getting involved with the Keller PTO at that point.
And Keller has always had a really strong PTO, like real active, and they do a lot for the school. Yeah,
absolutely. Keller PTO has been really just a great way to network. And I would say this for any of the schools, if your school doesn't have a particularly large PTO, you can always make it bigger. Signing up for things and volunteering your time at the school, it's a great way to get to know the faculty, the teachers, the staff, the other parents. So, yeah.
Right. Well, the big topic for you as a parent is, how is back to school going for your kids?
So as you know, back to school looks a little different this year. So it's 100% online. So we had to actually transform what we had built as our home office. We had to turn into a one-room schoolhouse for our kids. I think for us, the main thing was giving them a space that had the least amount of distractions in it was the key, and so giving them that area worked for our needs.
Yeah, I did see that on the news, that it looks like you have a really nice setup for the kids.
So yeah, we ended up turning what was like normally a shed, and then we finished it off inside and had it all decked out for them and everything. So it's nice, but it's getting easier every week. The kids are getting more and more independent, which is really the key, I think, to having them get the most out of this experience. But at 9:30 in the morning, I put an earbud in my left ear and I'm listening to the instructions from my second grade teacher. And then I put an earbud in my right ear and I'm listening to the instructions for the day from my first grade teacher. And just trying to decompartmentalize everything that we need to do for the day. But it's working, and the teachers are doing a phenomenal job. The staff, the faculty at the schools are doing a great job. And if there's any, problems, because the process is not perfect, but the school is doing a really good job of sending assistance and helping you fix things. And, each week it gets easier. This is almost the end of the third week. And my kids are already learning how to raise their virtual hands and mute and unmute their mics and turn on and off their cameras. And so they're doing a great job. And at the end of the day, and this is what I was telling our principal yesterday, was that our kids are learning. So kids are learning new material, and that's really what you hope out of a program like this would do.
So you have had success in kind of your setup for the kids. And do you have any tips for parents that might be struggling in that area as far as organization or just the whole setup?
Yeah, so of course you're stuck in the beginning, like, what kind of supplies do I need? Do I need the same amount of supplies as I would if they were going to school? Our teachers and the schools did a great job of kind of giving you everything that you would need as far as like all your textbooks, but everything's really driven online. So I think that the thing that's helped our kids adjust the best is to give them a quiet area, maybe not in the living room with the TV on or any other distractions like that. We've even recruited 2 retired 150 teachers to come help tutor our kids 2 days a week. And there was a news segment on that not too long ago, and other parents have reached out to us. And so if you want to reach out to your schools or to me, I know a lot of retired teachers who are willing to step in and kind of help kids with the material outside of just what they're learning online from the classroom.
Yeah, that's really nice that you found a couple of retired teachers to do that.
Yep.
That's wonderful. As I said in the beginning, I would call you a supersized volunteer because you do a lot of volunteer work. And how did you get involved in children's literacy and Look It's My Book? I know that's like you're involved with a lot, but you are the president of the Look It's My Book organization.
Okay, so Look It's My Book. In case you're not familiar with what the organization does, we've been around for 12 years here in Peoria. We're a non-for-profit organization, and we provide new books to all Peoria Public School students, kindergarten through 4th grade. We come to the schools 6 times a year, so 3 times in the fall, 3 times in the spring, and your kids they come down, every classroom comes down to, like, say, a cafeteria. We have the book set up on grade level tables, and then they get to pick out a new book that they choose. And so that's and over the past 12 years, we've given out over 1/3 books. So that's tremendous. And that's just off of community support and involvement. So in our neighborhood, the founding president of Look It's My Book, Janet Roth, I got in a conversation with her, and as any of our 500 volunteers in the organization will tell you, that it all started with just a simple conversation with Janet, and it was not a hard sell to just, buy into how important it is for our kids to be reading, literacy, obviously, and the importance of reading at a 3rd grade level by the time that the students leave 3rd grade is critical, because that's whenever they stop reading because they have to and start reading because they want to. So
how long have you been involved with Look It's My Book? Because you said
I've been involved with Look It's My Book for about 3 years. And it was ever since our son started at Keller. So of course, when that organization started coming in, I started off just doing book distributions. So that's where we just set up at the school, and the kids come down and pick out the books. Then I started hosting labeling parties at my house, which of course, we get cases and cases of books that get delivered. We stick Look It's My Book labels in them so that the kids can, there's a spot in there for them to write their own name, so they know that that's their book. It's not something they have to return. And then over the course of the next year, I was asked to join the advisory board. And then about a year after that, I was asked if I wanted to be the vice president. And then this year in March, I was asked to take over as president. And Janet has just been a phenomenal mentor. I mean, I've been involved in volunteering for many years, but I've never been involved in volunteering really at this level. And she has been just an incredible mentor to me, to all the other volunteers, to the community. And so she stayed on the board. She is just as past president, but she's still very active. And she is definitely still kind of helping me out as I learn the ropes, because it wasn't, but I think our very first week as me as president, then the pandemic and COVID-19 kind of shut everything down. So then we had to redesign how everything was going to look as far as what we normally do for book distributions. And so we did. That was our first task.
Yeah. Well, you've done a really good job with kind of that transition. And I bet Janet is loving having you as her successor. And I know she's still actively involved in the organization, but it's nice to have someone that steps into that role. So I'm going to ask you a personal question.
Okay.
Because you are just incredibly busy with 4 children. You just do so much volunteer work in the community. What is it that you do for you? Is there something in the last, let's say, month that you've just done for you? Like if it's reading a book, going to, well, the movies aren't there, but is there something you can think of that you've done for yourself in the last month?
Well, to me, just being a dad and volunteering is what I love to do. I mean, it's not a job, it's not anything I have to do. I mean, I do have to be a dad, but it's not something, I mean, to me, I guess, and I wish I could say that I got to read a book. I'm usually, by the time I lay down in bed, it takes about 10 minutes for me to fall asleep. So, I've learned to just, maybe get audiobooks from now on. But really right now, I mean, I guess I feel happy knowing that our kids are taken care of. and really that the other kids in the community are really my focus. It's when it comes to anything dealing with the children, I guess I just can't really say no, whether that's a good thing or bad thing. But that actually just, I guess, is something for me, is just knowing that I'm helping as many kids as I can, as many families as I can. So,
do you have a TV show that you like, that like when the kids are in bed on the weekend, or is there like a movie that you've watched in the last month, or do you just crash when they crash?
When they crash, for the most part. I got to catch one episode of America's Got Talent. So that was kind of fun. I don't normally, I'm actually looking forward to Dancing with the Stars. That's going to really start back up. I was excited for baseball. It's done a whole lot different this year. It just doesn't quite have that same dynamic impact when you see the cardboard cutouts in the stands. But I mean, I'm still glad they're playing. I mean, stuff like that. I guess it's just kind of finding, I don't know, the little things to enjoy right now, so.
Yeah. Well, with 4 kids, I mean, that's a lot of work. So.
Well, it is a lot of work, and I can't do it by myself. I mean, I think that's key for any parent, find your best friend, find family members, people you trust, and use them as resources. I mean, it takes a village to raise a village, right? And so I'm definitely blessed with a mom and friends that help us pretty much every day. So
yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, a really big thank you to you for what you've done with our Little Free Pantry program.
Oh yeah.
You board from really the start of COVID. You just took it upon yourself to really start helping us advocate and get food donations, and just really out there, even delivering the food to the pantries. And I love that you've kind of had your children a part of it too, because showing them that giving is so important in your life. Was food insecurity kind of a passion of yours, or you just know working in the school, it just kind of?
So food insecurity was not something I really knew a whole lot about in our community until COVID-19 hit. In March, as the second that everything shut down and the schools, went to online learning, such as it was at the time, I knew just from dealing with fostering and with Family Corps that there are needs in the community that a lot of people sometimes don't really realize are out there. And so you have to think, okay, so schools are closed now. So that's the one place is safe for your children, right? And they get food there, they get education there, and they get watched over. When that's taken away, and I know that they were doing the lunch program too, which was amazing. You have to stop and think, okay, what can we do? And so going back with Look It's My Book, the first thing we knew is we couldn't go back into the schools and do book distribution. So how can we still get new books into the kids' hands? We did the drive-through distribution at our warehouse. And then we also started filling in with the Little Free Libraries at the 12 primary and elementary schools. Right next to those Little Free Libraries, which if you've ever been to the schools and you see those little white, they look kind of like a big or a miniature little house, with a roof and everything with shingles, little doors. Right next to them are the Little Free food pantries. And I'll be honest, I never really noticed the food pantry option there. So we started putting in the books. And I remember and this is the day it started, I was at Franklin School and the doors were open. And I was like, oh, what's in here? And there was nothing inside of it. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So then I'm like, so every week I would bring in books. I would just start bringing in food and putting in the pantries. Well, then as I would look at them, some of the pantries were, stocked and you could tell that food was being exchanged, but then some of them were just bone dry empty. And when I found out that you were actually in charge of those, I would send you text message and say, hey, did you know that this was down? You're like, oh, well, we have a team that does that, but maybe some of them are running lower quicker than others. And I really got a pattern because I would the difference was I was going to all 12 of those schools at that point, I was going every single week, sometimes 2 and 3 times. I would see where there was a need at certain schools. And so I would just take a picture, post it on Facebook and say, hey, if anyone's out and about and wants to drop by, I can guarantee you this food pantry will probably need some more food by tomorrow. And people just started sending me checks to go do their grocery shopping, because at the time people couldn't go to the grocery store, or they weren't comfortable going to the grocery store. So they felt more comfortable just donating a check. So I would deposit it, order groceries online, they would deliver them, I would go drop it off. We were not exposed to anyone else in that process, yet you could tell that you were affecting a whole lot of people, because when those pantries are running empty every single night or every other day, you can tell that there's a need there for it.
Right.
And so that's what got me, really thinking about food insecurity and what kind of a need there was in our community for it.
Yeah. But you really, I mean, that's been a wonderful help to us and to the families, because, it is a lot of work when we're in, 18 schools with those little free pantries. And, especially during COVID and the lockdown and all that, we still were out there putting, and I think that, the families really did appreciate it. But I love that you took it upon yourself to just do it. And you still, like, you're advocating, and that support still is really important. So
it's what I call, if you see a need, fill a need. If you see something that, is you can do something and to help better, then do it, if you can. So that's why it kind of started that way.
Right. So what are your plans for fall?
So with back to school already kind of being underway, it was interesting kind of just getting into this whole scene of community involvement. It sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about an entire community of over 1/3 people, it's, there's so many facets and areas you can get involved in. But when you start to really get into this scene, people kind of come out and say, hey, Mike, did you know that this kind of could use some help, or we could kind of use some assistance here? And I'm like, okay. And I remember sitting down at lunch and someone was saying, I really appreciate what you're doing with the books and what you've done with the food. And it's incredible, because even big grocery stores now, so Hy-Vee has stepped up and taken over filling those food pantries on a weekly basis. That's incredible, right? They're filling the need, And so with that kind of being taken care of, and the books, we're still doing with Look, It's My Book. We're doing this fall, the last Wednesday of every month in August, September. So we already did August. So we've got September and October. We're doing our drive-through book distribution at our warehouse there on the corner of Sheridan and War Memorial. And you show up between 2 and 5 p.m. and you get your book. We have books on poster board. You stay in your car, you pull in, you pick out the book you want. We have it bagged, sealed, delivered to your car, all contactless as much as possible. And then you can go. And then we're also doing our online auction that's going on this week too. That helps. You guys can get some awesome stuff, and it goes back in, 100% of it goes right back into buying more books for the springtime. But as far as the fall goes, we've even done things. So I was talking with a teacher's aide from Tree Wind, and she was talking to me and telling me how some of the kids show up for school, whether it be virtual or in person, and they've got no paper, no pencils, no backpacks, no change of underwear, basic essential. We're not talking about the Anne Frank notebooks or we're just talking basic essential needs. And so I'm like, so then I couldn't sleep that night. So I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? And the next day I got online and I just made a post on Facebook and I said, hey, if you're at all interested in helping out, let me know. And we had over 1,000 notebooks delivered and over 1,000 folders delivered. And my entire living room, mantle, hearth area was just full of supplies from just one day of distribution. So we boxed up, I think it was 11 boxes, and took it over to the public school admin office so they could have that for this fall to distribute. Because even though we're doing online stuff, they still need paper, they still need pencils, they still need crayons, all those things like that. And so I think that's kind of just our main thing for the fall, is to just continue filling those free little pantries, filling those free little libraries, making sure the kids have school supplies, and just kind of continuing doing that. So.
And thoughts on keeping your children engaged in learning and extra activities?
So, the school had to cancel a lot of things. So being on the, this year, I'm the president of the PTO board at Keller, and there's a team of us on the board there. And we've been, trying to figure out what we can do, because our traditional things we can do to engage the kids, we had to cancel all of our fun events in the traditional sense, right? So Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all that stuff had to kind of cancel out. But we've come up with ways to do virtual things like we do. Our principal, Heidi Barron, has done a great job of just engaging the school as much as possible. She's going to be doing a spirit week coming up. And, it's fun, even though you're at home, still putting on like your crazy hat day or, J day or, your athletic spirit wear and stuff. So we do things like that with the kids. We take the kids down to the Riverfront Museum. We take the kids to Fond du Lac Farm Park. We've had some amazing weather right now. We've gone to the Peoria Public Zoo. We still try to keep our kids engaged with other kids. I think, a lot of teachers are stressed right now, just trying to figure out how to run their classrooms and still engage the kids. And then you've got the kids who are stressed. But, us parents really are tasked with, how do I try to make things as normal as you can for your kids? And so we do visits with friends online a lot. We'll do like outdoor activities with the kids in smaller groups. So, Halloween's going to look different. We're not going to be getting out of the car and going door to door trick-or-treating this year, but we're still going to get dressed up. We're still going to go around to, family and friends' houses and hopefully picking up some pre-made goodie bags, that way. So, that's how we're trying to just keep our kids engaged with, and they're having a good time with it right now. I mean, my kids are still young enough though, that they don't really understand the whole idea about what's going on globally. And I don't really want them to, because they're so little, but they're making the best out of the situation, and we're doing okay so far. So
I can tell that, you seem like a very positive person in general. Like that's your nature, I can tell, which I love. And, on Facebook, you definitely always keep it positive. And I think that is important because there is a lot of not so great things going on in the world. So, but I love how you do some really unique things with your children. Like I don't know, you or Ryan are like super crafty, or like the things that you do. And I love how much you show them. You can tell you have a big heart and you're very giving, but your kids they're bound to be, if they're not already, just, that way. So,
I think it's important for our kids. We have a thing when it comes to those little free pantries, we deliver the food before we have our dinner. And my kids at first, were kind of not sure, like, oh, Dad, why are we going to all these schools, or why are we breaking, why are we doing this? And, as you explain, some families they get it now. They know that they're going to have dinner. So they know that it's important that we give people an option to do that as well, so they wait. We do crafty things with the kids. I don't know, Pinterest, oh my God. Okay. So I suppose if I don't watch TV as often as other parents, I'm probably on Pinterest and now Etsy. And so I'm finding out creative ways, talking. I'm involved in a lot of parent groups on Facebook. I know sometimes on Facebook, it's easy to make it seem like, things are always positive. We struggle with things in our family, in our household. We've had family members who have gotten sick from COVID. It's a very hard time right now for everybody. But we try to stay positive. We try to only post helpful things for our friends and family to see. And we try to stay that way mainly for our kids. Just to kind of have that positive outlook and to help others when they can, and find fun, creative things we can do around the house. One weekend we were so stir crazy, we opened up our closet and we had some gifts that hadn't been opened yet from birthdays. And so every morning they opened up a new bag, and it was like sun catcher painting and rock painting. And we just do fun, creative stuff like that just to keep busy and keep it new in the house. So,
yeah. And are they doing okay? I know you said you kind of keep them out of everything going on in the world since they're so small, but have they been sad about the online learning and not being like at school as much, or are they coping okay with that?
So two of my kids were really, really sad when they first found out that they weren't going back to school. And then I had one daughter who was like, okay, she's fine either way. She could go either way. But the other two were sad, and it was because they weren't going to see their friends as much. But because MS Teams is set up in a way that it is, they see all of their classmates every single day, the same ones that they've seen last year. And then in my son's case, the year before that, they get to see, there's a select group of friends. We still get together. We mask up and we stay socially distant at each other's houses. And the kids get to still see each other. We do outdoor movie night. So we grab a projector, and I just use masking tape, make X's on the ground 6 feet apart. Families bring in their blankets. They sit down and they can take off their mask when they're on their blanket, and we can watch the movie on the thing. And when they want to get up and talk and stuff, they mask up and they walk around and they talk to people, So, we get creative with ways to still let the kids see their friends and be involved with other people too. So, but in my case, I've got 4 kids at home, so it's never like anyone's lonely in this house ever.
Right. Yeah. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about or ask or share with the viewers?
Nothing I can think of, for us, like I said, I think that one of the best things that I ever did was get involved with our school first and foremost, getting involved in, a PTO or just offering any assistance to your teachers really goes a long way. Even though the kids aren't in their classrooms right now, they still can use assistance with things. I know right now you can see a lot of kids, some of them kind of struggling online. So the more you're involved with your teacher, the more easier that communication channel is. And so you can find out kind of how you can help your kids out, because, at the end of the day, you just want to do what's best for your kids. And, whether you're at work all day, and having to come home at night and do some of the stuff, if you have that open line of communication with your teachers and your school, they're there to help you. So, if you can get involved with your school, then that's a great thing too. So.
Since you're the president of the PTO, and I think this is something, it's part of being in that leadership capacity and, working to help support the school. You kind of mentioned it earlier, and I think you'd be outstanding if there are any parents out there, and not necessarily in, Keller or like other schools in PPS, that need some kind of parental support or mentoring from you. How could someone contact you, like through Facebook or something?
Absolutely. They can contact me through Facebook. They can email me. I have families. I've met people all over the district, not involved in Keller or the line of schools that we'll be going to, that reach out, and I've reached out to for help. Or just some advice, I think that Peoria Public Schools is huge. It's over 13,000 students, right? So it's hard to know who to ask or where to find information. And so I'm always, offering, if anyone has any questions, just to let me know. I am on the board of the PTO. We have a PTO board at our school that's made up of a past president, vice president, communications director, and treasurer and secretary. Some schools only have a president. Some schools have nothing. So right. I will help out anyone from any of the schools, whether any grade levels, and I can help kind of put them in the right direction. I may not know the answers to what you need. And oftentimes I don't give actual answers to stuff because I don't ever want it to come back on me, but I'll definitely get you in touch with who can get you that information. So.
Right. I don't know.
I was going to say one thing too about that. Our PTO did so we had to kind of revamp, no more kind of fun activities per se this year. But instead we were able to use our resources and get things like 6-foot stickers for our schools and extra cleaning supplies for the schools and teachers, because, while the kids aren't there right now, when they go back to school, I think that it's great that, our school is going to be as prepared as they can be. So if any of the other schools or PTOs want any direction on where to maybe get some stuff, how to go about getting that, just let me know too on that. So.
I don't know if you know this person, but Nicholas Connor says Mike rocks.
Yeah. So Nick Connor is, no, I did not pay him to say this, but Nick Connor is actually our vice president of the PTO at Keller. But, you know, I mean, just even just small things like, you know, he's also a firefighter here in Peoria. And, you know, a lot of things, you know, you're talking about like kind of different things our kids do to stay busy. So, you know, recently the talk about cutting some of our firefighters in the city of Peoria was a hot topic. And for us and our family, you know, we obviously support public safety. And so my kids, we loaded up the car, took a couple dozen donuts down to the main firehouse, and we just showed them some support. You know, anytime you get a chance to just show some other people some support, it doesn't have to be donuts. Donuts are nice. But, you know, and even if you just went down and just said, you know, thank you for what you're doing, just like I said, it's just small things like that really kind of help impact a community. And thanks, Nick, for all that you do for our community. So,
and probably the last thing I would just ask, I know Mr. Turner was at Keller for what is 20 years, 25 years?
Over 20 years, yeah, I believe.
Okay. So how's the transition with having a very long-term principal into having Mrs. Barron there?
Oh man. So, you know, of course, so it's not common anymore that a principal stays at a school quite as long as Ken did, right? You know, so a lot of parents who have been there, especially ones who have been there from kindergarten all the way through fourth grade or third grade at the time, when they hear about the change coming, everyone's like, oh my gosh, how's this going to be? How's this going to, you know, work? You know, what's the structure going to be like? So not only do you have a new principal starting, but then you have this new virtual, you know, school year starting as well. And it was interesting because Heidi came, she was a teacher at Keller. So a lot of the teachers who are there now had taught with her. So they already kind of knew her. But as far as parents, they didn't really know her all that well. I knew her a little bit before she came on, and I knew she was going to be great for Keller. And she has really shown that she is, you know, she didn't come in there ready to, you know, change everything that Ken did, but she did come in there with her own ideas, and she's really making the school her own. And I think Ken would be, you know, just amazed with the work that Heidi's doing. We're lucky to have her. And I, you know, like I said, throw all that aside and then having to do it all during a pandemic. She's doing an amazing job. We have a secretary that, you know, is just her right arm in that school, you know, and she's doing an amazing job. And then all those teachers and all the faculty, you know, I mean, they're just all pulling around and doing, you know, all they can do. And she's doing a great job leading them. So
good.
We're happy to have her. She's doing great.
A little personal note about her. I don't know her well, but her mother, when I attended Woodruff High School, class of 1985, and her mother was our class sponsor. So back then in the 80s, especially at Woodruff, they would have one teacher kind of support the whole class. So her mother, Mrs. Sullivan, was so nice. So I got to know her, you know, while I attended Woodruff High School, but just a very kind person. She helped, you know, a lot of the class of 1985 students at Woodruff. So it's kind of, her daughter's done so well in Peoria Public Schools too. So anyway, well, thank you so much for joining tonight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for all you do for our community. I mean, I've shared your status. I don't know if all the teachers know about the scholarships and grants you guys offer. Fill it out. You know, I mean, that's a great resource to have, you know, and the Horizons program, I'm really looking forward to that taking back off once school gets back in session, and just all those programs that you do. It's just, you know, you guys do an amazing job for the Peoria community. So thank you. So.
Well, thank you. And yeah, please do encourage. Right now, the big thing is our classroom grants. And we know that it will be different applying for the grants because, you know, a lot of them are for kind of in-class activities, but we're really asking our teachers and staff to kind of think really differently and still apply for those grants because they are available. So if you could definitely help us with that and spreading the word. And, you know, I mean, I think you're like probably me or many people is we are hoping that maybe we will be back in class, and maybe that will be in January. We don't know, but so they still could apply for a grant for something in the winter or for the spring. So,
Okay.
anyway, well, thank you. We at the Peoria Public Schools Foundation appreciate you immensely. Have a good evening and a good weekend.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.